Okay, well, hi everybody. Thank you so much everyone who was able to make it. I'm so happy with how many participants we see. But we are going to be presenting on the chemistry SI series we have here at San Diego State. We have Maureen here, and we're Stephen, we have a couple SI leaders. So Brett, if we could go to the next slide. Oh, perfect. So Stephen, do you want to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon. I'm pleased to be here. My name is Stephen Schomburg. I'm Assistant VP for Educational Effectiveness.
Maureen Garcello. I'm the Research Analytics and Communications Coordinator here in Instructional Technology Services.
I'm Emily Bates. I'm the SI Coordinator under Division of Academic Engagement and Student Achievement, or DASA.
Hi, I'm Libby Muzel. I'm an SI leader for Chem 100, and I've also been an SI leader for Chem 200.
My name is Sydney Tran, and this semester I am leading Chem 100.
Hi, my name is Regan, and I am a Chem 200 SI leader.
Perfect. And then I'll pass it over to Stephen.
Sure. So thanks for making space for us, and we're looking forward to sharing really 4 things today. As you can see up there, a little bit about the beginnings of our program, the outcomes so far, and also some of the student outcomes and also some additional outcomes. But most of the time we really want to dedicate just the previous presentation to hearing from the SI leaders themselves and their voice. So if we could do next slide, please, sir. A little bit about our program. So we started as a pilot program in fall 2015. It was one of the course-specific interventions that was identified and rolled out through our Learning Analytics Working Group. And we started with just one course, 9 SI leaders in our Psych 101 course with Dr. Lemakis, longtime partner. And then from fall 2015 through spring 2015 through spring 17, this pilot had legs. It worked pretty well. And so we grew more legs. And so we went to roughly doubling each semester to about 8 courses is where we are now. And then we shifted into a sustained mode in fall 2017 by taking some really rigorous evidence-based approaches to demonstrating impact. We're able to, those included looking at self-selection bias towards positive outcomes. This is a voluntary intervention, as we all know. So trying to get our heads wrapped around that. And we're able to present some pretty compelling evidence to the university leadership that this program was having a high impact and high challenge courses. And we were able to receive university-based funding in fall 17. And that allowed us to hire a full-time coordinator, Emily Bates, and really sort of stabilize and get to a steady state where we are currently with nearly 60 SI leaders and about 54,000 students being served this academic year so far. 5,400. We aspire for 54,000. So next slide, please. So we're going to be focusing in on the chemistry sequence and a little bit about the sequence here at SDSU. We have a math placement or chemistry placement test. So if students don't take or don't pass that chemistry placement, they may only enroll for the Chemistry 100 course, which is a 4-unit lecture and laboratory. This is also a GE Physical Sciences course, but relatively few students take this to fulfill their GE. So these are largely STEM track students. Students who pass the chemistry placement test may enroll in Chem 200 directly. They may elect to just take Chem 100 first, but they may enroll in Chem 200, which is a 5-unit. And after completing Chem 200, where we have SI, and Chem 202, which is Chemistry 2, basically, they can then go on, and many majors require 1 semester of Chem 232, which is the organic chemistry sequence. So for supplemental instruction, this was introduced in Chem 200 in fall 16, relatively early in the program. Chem 232 was introduced in spring 17, and Chem 100 in fall 17. And this was really part of the broader course redesign with technology support effort, where we're bringing in faculty for the course redesign and also striving to have a vertically integrated approach to this particular sequence, which many students take, as I'm sure is the case at many of your campuses. So this semester marks the 2nd full academic year of this sort of vertically integrated approach. And I'm going to toss it over to Maureen, who's going to talk a little bit about our outcomes.
So, well, I just want to say it. Can you please advance the slide? Thank you. So Assessment and sharing our outcomes has, as Stephen mentioned, it's been a part of our SI culture here at SDSU, both among the administration, our faculty expecting these numbers to come back to them, and also our students have taken up a lot of the work in researching and assessing the program's effectiveness. Part of this came out of just the fight for survival on this one-time funding that we had for a couple years, and making sure that we were showing ongoing growth and evidence of success, and also to be able to make sure that we found the right fit, the right classrooms, the right spaces to be in terms of serving as many students as possible, as well as possible. So also coming from the Learning Analytics Working Group, they had some expectations on our outcomes and the numbers as well. We use magnetic card swipers to capture the student's red ID as they walk into the SI session. So that makes things a little bit more sustainable and scalable and easy for us to pair those information with the learning management system data that, that come from the grade books that professors give us access to. That makes it low to no maintenance for those faculty. So the data above reflect the participation for the 3-course chemistry series, even though the pilot started, or the vertical integration started last year. These are our fall 18 outcomes, the most recent ones that we have completed on the books. You can see that the rest of our course attendance, actually the calc classes, linear algebra, psychology 101, and stat 119, which is an introductory stats class for business majors, hovers around 30% of the class voluntarily attend at least one session. In the chemistry series, we see that we have over a 40% voluntary participation rate. We attribute some of that, and I'm sure our SI leaders who just presented a poster at a student research symposium this morning might chat a little bit more about why they think, or why they have actually seen through their research this is happening. So one more. In addition to just the overall attendance, where we look and we stand on the shoulders of giants, Fullerton and Fresno, whose numbers, Mike who shares your number, oh my goodness. So many students, so many SI leaders, so much attendance, and so we're always shooting higher and further and kind of looking for those return visitors. So although we're very excited, having started the program in 2015, we're really excited to see that a lot of students were attending. Now we're raising the bar and looking at those average numbers of a number of student visits. And so we see again in the chemistry series, we've got 5 as the average number of the student visits. And then in the rest of the classes that we serve, I think it's around 3. Is that 3? Yeah. 3 or 4. But where we've drawn the line in terms of our research versus just the assessment, but the research itself, we're drawing the line at about 3 or more sessions, counting as an SI attending participant. So I have Mike Hu to thank for that. We have Mike Hu to thank for that. We didn't think that was really, we're like, no, one counts. That'll be good. And now we have enough of a critical mass to be able to look at that in terms of 3 or more visits. And then on this final slide, in terms of my presentation, okay, this is a lot, but I'll orient you briefly. We've got spring 2018 outcomes on the top table, fall 2018 outcomes on the bottom table. This again is the chemistry integrations. So it's Chem 100, 200, and 232. The SI attending population and non-attending populations you'll see are marked in that left-hand column. And then of those students who attended, for example, in Chem 100, 50% of the class came to at least one session, and 50% of the class did not choose to participate in a supplemental instruction session. But you'll see that the differences between those students who attended in the fall semester, the percentage, and those who attended in the spring semester, for both chemistry 100 and 232, which is our organic chemistry class, are substantially different. For example, in chemistry 232 in fall of 2018, about 45% of the class attended at least one session. And in Chem 232 that spring, Nope, the spring before, 65% attended. So what we're looking at here and what our SI leaders are looking more closely at is the social component of students telling other students about supplemental instruction. And we're seeing that by dialing it all the way back to that foundation course, the Chem 100 course, that the attendance is growing over time. And I think they're seeing some returners that are persevering through that series, where all three of these courses were high challenge beforehand. We see anywhere from a 2% upwards to a 10% difference between the grades of those students who attended SI sessions and didn't attend SI sessions by exam. And we find that our biggest recruitment mechanism is a faculty member sharing the slide after every exam that shows an aggregate number of how many students attended, how many students didn't attend, and what the grade distribution for each of those groups was. And in almost every circumstance, and we look very carefully at the circumstances when this doesn't happen, those students who attend outperform the students who don't attend. And that's what really motivates the students who aren't choosing to make SI part of their practice, to take that next step.
Perfect, thank you. So based on all of our data and all of our attendance, we saw some exciting additional outcomes, not just the student outcomes that we were kind of expecting to find. So with the Chem series, when we were looking at the expansion of program impact, that's what Maureen was mentioning of, it seemed like more students were attending it with each successive Chem class. It seemed like they were getting more help, they were more used to the SI model, so it led to better sessions all around. In terms of SI leader advancement, it has allowed us a lot more flexibility within SI leaders of they've moved from Chem 100 to 200 to 232. We have some instances where they go back to the beginning, and we can just be really solid in their Chem knowledge, that they have stayed current and that they're really well-trained SI leaders, many semesters under their belt, that we were able to have some of them here. And it allows us that flexibility of, it doesn't have to be if they can't attend for that one lecture that they initially signed on for, that they're out of the program. So we're really happy to have them stick around. In terms of needs for additional structural support, I am very jealous of the faculty liaisons you all are mentioning. I would love to have something like that in the future, maybe even looking at cost sharing with different departments so that we can kind of branch out of the College of Sciences that we're pretty centrally located in right now, but have a broader impact across different parts of campus and not just the College of Sciences. I'm just going to quickly mention we have been able to do virtual SI in Chem 200. That's where we started it as part of the CRT, working with one of our professors. So that was kind of the impetus for starting virtual, that we had this Chem series going and we wanted to bring in this new component. I'm going to let the students touch on it, but as Maureen mentioned, our student SI leaders have really taken the reins on research, and they, I think, the fourth semester now, that they've held a student research team that was led by Livy this year. They meet throughout the semester, weekends, breaks, and they worked really hard. They just today presented 2 posters at the Student Research Symposium here at SDSU, so we're really proud of them. And then space, the final frontier, and by space I mean space on campus. So that's our constant struggle, is how do we fit more sessions, how do we fit more students, and like we said, we're looking for the repeat, the people that repeat coming. So we don't just want big spaces for pre-exam, we're looking for large spaces dedicated to SI throughout the semester. So that's kind of our dream if we have one.
And I see the questions rolling in. We'll happily take some time, if we have time at the end, to answer the questions after our students chat. And for anyone who has questions, we're happy also to just be in touch and communicate over the SI community or via email or phone, Zoom.
Yeah, and in terms of virtual SI, I know that there's going to be a presentation on it right after, so I'm sure all of your questions will be answered with that. For now, I'm going to turn it over and let our SI leaders introduce themselves. Brett, if we can go to the next slide.
Hi everyone, as I mentioned before, my name is Livy. I'm a 4th year at SDSU, going to be graduating this May. I'm an interdisciplinary studies major. This is a major at SDSU that allows a student to choose 3 minors and make a degree out of that. Mine are biology, chemistry, and philosophy. It's a fun mix. You can ask me questions about it later. I've been an SI leader since fall 2016 with Sydney. We both joined as Chem 200 leaders. I did that for 5 semesters, and this semester is my first with Chem 100. I've also been a virtual SI leader for 2 semesters and been with the SRS research team for 3 years now. So it's been quite a wild ride.
My name is Sydney Tran. I started at the same time as Livy in fall of 2016. I've somewhat dipped my toes in all of the chemistries in the chem series. So I did introductory chemistry, general chemistry, and also organic chemistry. This semester I am doing introductory chemistry for the first time. My major is chemistry, but there is an emphasis in teaching. Livy and I are going to be teaching in the Bay Area next year. We're going to be teaching high school chemistry, and a lot of it is due to the fact that we were SI leaders. So yeah, we owe a lot to the program.
Hi, my name is Regan Mukpik. I am also an interdisciplinary studies major. It's my 2nd year. My 3 departments are kinesiology, public health, and Spanish. Also another interesting mix. I've been an SI leader since the fall of 2018. I became one after I took Chem 200, and for the past 2 semesters, I've been a Chem 200 leader, and this semester, I'm also a virtual SI leader.
Perfect, thank you guys. Brett, if we could go to the next slide. So we have a few discussion questions that we, oh, that's funny. We have a few discussion questions that we have for the leaders. And then at any point, if you all have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll go ahead and pull that up and we can just answer those ones live. Those are specifically for the SI leaders though. So first we wanted to talk about how do you all think having a series of chem courses has impacted SI in the following ways? If you could click once, Brett. So for example, student exposure, what are your thoughts?
So in terms of student exposure, for a lot of my students, they first hear about supplemental instruction in introductory chemistry. And as they go on, a lot of them will move on to general chemistry. And if they have a science focus, a lot of them will also move on to organic chemistry. And once they reach that organic chemistry mark, it's pretty certain that they most definitely have heard of supplemental instruction before, if not have gone to other supplemental instructions for those past disciplines. And something that I do want to make note of is it does establish a big level of trust with the program. Having the professors advocate for it every single semester that they're moving forward really gives us a sense of I guess, trust with the students, because they know the professors would not advocate for us if they did not believe in us and our abilities to help them pass the course. So that student exposure in the series really encourages a lot of attendance. With organic chemistry, just last spring, we had 60% of the class actually attend at least one SI session, and I wouldn't doubt if a lot of it was due to all of that past exposure.
Perfect. Do you all have anything else you wanted to add?
The only thing I want to add is I'm a great example of what Sydney talked about earlier. I heard of supplemental instruction when I took Chem 100. I didn't attend, but I knew of it when I took Chem 200, and that's why I went, because I heard a lot about it when I was taking Chem 100. And currently, I'm a student in Chem 232, that'd be organic chemistry, and actually later today I will be going to an SI session for that. I have a test tomorrow. I just wanted to point that out, is that students really do keep going with it. Even though I'm an SI leader and that I guess qualifies me as pretty good at chemistry, I still need it.
Perfect. Thank you. Next. Oh. So what about, or I'll take it over.
Considering session attendance, I mean, we have the normal attendance patterns where right before the exam, that week we'll see a lot more students. We call those our dreaded pre-exams because that's when we're very stressed as SI leaders. Across the series, we've seen some interesting trends where students who are going in 100 are also going in 200. About 60% of the students from 100 in the semester that we looked at were continuing on to use SI the next semester, which means that they're subscribing to our program over multiple semesters and their attendance is counted for all of that. And seeing that even one semester of SI can have an effect on the grades of a class. So we're thinking that the study techniques from one course, not only the chemistry skills that they're learning, but everything they've learned through their checks for understanding, their wait time, and their redirecting, talking with every student, seeing how they can learn from others. They're taking that with them to other sessions. And I've seen some of my students meet with each other outside of my SI sessions. I'll see them in the library and I can tell that they're meeting with each other and they have their own groups that they're in attendance with. And that's just a really powerful thing to see with our students on campus.
Yeah, I would agree with Livy that people coming to SI with our attendance, it almost becomes a social thing too. They always usually come in groups or in pairs. Rarely we get just one person coming. It's with attendance, it's usually multiple people.
Next.
Professor involvement.
So with student trust, I think we also get a lot of professor trust as well. It is a relatively new program on our campus, so it takes a lot, I believe, for the professors to really trust the leaders and what we're doing in our sessions, because they don't get to come and they don't get to see who actually comes, so they really have to trust that research that we have. And because we serve so many students, we have a lot of evidence proving that SI does work, especially at our campus in the Chem series. So that does establish a lot of professor trust with us.
And I know that at least from our point of view, and I'm sure you all experience similar things at your campus, our professors, it can be a lot more individual of if an SI leader wants to be more involved, they will be, and they'll ask more questions and engage more with the SI leaders. And then some are really interested in running their class, but I do find on average that the Chem professors, they have a certain level of awareness and a certain level of education about the SI program just because it is in multiple levels. And I've even had professors go from Chem 232 to Chem 200, and it's nice just already having that established relationship and doing something new. Next question. And just because of time, I think we're gonna open up to just general questions. Yeah, I think, so we've talked about would they recommend, or do you all have any other final thoughts before we open it up to questions?
I think with professor involvement, that's something as leaders we definitely want to work on. That's something I think personally that's an area I can improve on, is creating more of a relationship with each of the professors, well, specifically for Chem 200, to make my sessions better and also to make sure I'm doing the best I can for the students in that class.
I'll add a little bit to serving the series. I feel like it helps not only the SI culture, but the general culture on campus. I think I know a lot more people within the sciences because I've been an SI leader and an SI attendee. And I can see people in my lecture halls and I now know finally their name, even though I've seen them for 3 semesters, the same face. SDSU, we can have 250-person lectures, even in upper division for biology majors. It's really nice to have a smaller space where you can learn and get to know students. So that's one of the big pluses of having a series, is giving a student multiple opportunities to meet people that they could get along with and they can work with.
So one of the questions that we had in the chat is, how do you get students committed to attending the SI sessions, especially with commuting or other work commitments?
There's a lot of little things you can actually do to get students to come, just making them feel accountable. Although SI sessions are not mandatory and they're voluntary, just knowing their names and calling them by their names makes them feel like they're part of a community, especially for commuter students who do not have a ton of friends in class because they come to school and then when they're done with their classes, they go home. And to have a place to come and meet people, form study groups, form relationships with the SI leader, it makes them feel a little bit bad for not coming back next week, honestly. And And when they leave, you just go, okay, see you next week. And they go, dang, that means I have to come next week. So just being personable, a personable leader who knows your students and is not just like, okay, this is what we're doing today, like, go do it. I don't know any of your names, like, okay, bye. That's not really the environment that we try to cultivate. We try to cultivate a very friendly, welcoming environment that gives a sense of community and makes students feel welcome to come back.
And some of the research that the student research symposium team did last year was looking at specifically commuter students and students who were not residential to see if there were any unmet needs that the campus could potentially learn from or provide to those commuter students to make staying here longer throughout the day more comfortable, more convenient, and more inclusive for them. And so they actually had the opportunity to present those directly to the Dean of Students last year.
Yeah, and I'd add one of the big pieces of advice that I give to commuter students is when you're planning your schedule, try to leave an hour and a half gap somewhere. Like odds are if you have an hour and a half gap, the SI program has something to offer you. The campus itself has something to offer you. So I know a lot of students that fit into that demographic pack their schedules so tight so they can get in, take their classes and get out very quickly. Just being the voice that says, hey, maybe you want a gap here. Maybe you do want to stay longer because we have something for you.
And in terms of, Libby kind of mentioned other services. Somebody asked about other services tutoring. We do have tons of other tutoring services around campus. We have MESA, we have EOP tutoring, we have the Math and Statistics Learning Center, we have the Chemistry Help Room, which is kind of office hours. There are other options available, but like we mentioned earlier in the presentation, we just try to educate our SI leaders of when a student is in their right place in SI and should be there and they're caught up on the material versus some students, and it's not a bad thing at all, but they just are having a little bit extra time. They do need that individual attention. They do need a little bit of a question and answer session. So that's when we encourage them to attend one of the other more individualized services on campus.
And I'll just mention for John's question about the self-selection, we have a paper in Technology, Knowledge, and Learning in 2017 by Grossello et al. That talks about the approach we tried to take as sort of a first step, which was basically course and exact matching to try to get around this, or at least reduce selection bias and increase covariate balance.
And just to answer a few of the last questions, I think we're just out of time. Our sessions are an hour and 15 minutes long, and then normally that last 15 minutes for cleanup and transition. And then we offer them, each SI leader holds 2 sessions a week. So with about 45 SI leaders, we have about 90 sessions per week, and then that just depends on how many per discipline of how many SI leaders there are.
And Erica, we'll get back to you. I think the fair answer is it's complicated.
Yeah, I think that's it. Thank you all.
Great. Thank you, Team San Diego. And, I didn't give it proper context at the beginning, but as you could probably tell, this program has moved along so quickly. It's just amazing to see what they've done in about 3 years. And going from a small pilot, which was still, I think, about 800 students in 2 sections, but going from that small pilot to pretty quickly getting it institutionalized. And I think part of that is really looking at evidence and having the evidence early on and then leveraging that and then building upon it. So that's been really impressive. The average of 5 visits in this sequence, that's great. It kind of goes with that 3+ number you heard from Fresno, you heard from Julie Collins earlier. It's a great indicator of maybe doing some ROI data analysis as well, through something like this. And if you haven't kept track, we've had movie references to Jurassic Park, Jaws, and Star Trek so far. Offer.
80.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to back out of sharing and in a moment turn it over to Fresno, but let me do another announcement or reveal, as I've been calling them.
Yeah.
Oh, and there of your wonderful SI leaders in action there. Great. And what I'll do here, let me see if I can get escaped out of here and get live into my browser. So we've actually got data from a couple of the SI programs now in the data dashboard. So many of you may be aware we have the Student Success Data Dashboard through the Chancellor's Office. We now have SI beginning to be featured as of this week in that dashboard. And so what I'm going to do is go ahead and go to this tab. There we go. And let me just try and enlarge that a little bit and give you a quick demonstration. So right now we have Fresno and Monterey Bay. I know we have Humboldt and I believe Fullerton going in hopefully in the next week, and then we have others in the queue. These are programs who follow SI. They're in that blue group who follow the major tenets of SI and or are certified. Many of them are working towards certification. So if I look at Fresno across these 3 years, I'll show you the years breakdown, and I hover, you can see there's about a 7% gap, non-URM versus URM, in course completion rate or passing rate. Now, if you follow that trend by number of SI sessions attended, you can see that that gap closes down to about 3%. If you wanted to, you could look at, let's say, just the past year, 2017 data, and you can see what it looked like specifically for that year. So you can look year by year if you wanted to. You can look according to URM status, Pell Grant status, first gen status. So those are some of the different groupings that we have by student characteristics. And again, we have Fresno and Monterey Bay loaded in there right now. We have linked to the website and more information there. You have some of the data tables that you can also sort through if you wanted to. A little bit of FAQ or assistance with using these charts, how they're developed, how to apply the data, and what data methods were involved. So there's some background information there. So I'll be putting the link to that in a moment into the chat, and I've also got it on the next slide for you. So let me see if I can back out of that and get us over to Fresno. There we go. Okay, and I'll put that link, it's a very long URL, I'm going to put it into the chat, but again, you'll have the slides sent to you and the recordings posted and sent to you within a few days.